Alright, hello everyone, my name is Dîsc, and in this video we have a 25 Galakrond's Fall, and for the week cycle we are Fortified, Volcanic, and Spiteful. So that is not this current week, but I still wanted to use this video. It was a pretty good key with one of my buddies. And I wanted to say sorry to all of my followers for not having posted recently. I have just been spending my time doing other things. I got a new job, for example, so I've honestly just been busy. I am not going to retire this channel, so keep an eye out for some new videos coming up. I did a lesson video yesterday. I have another lesson video on next week. And these are students coming from Medify, so please check me out over there if you've not. I am a partner on Medify for Teaching Discipline. It is a website geared towards coaching for gamers. So go ahead and check me out over there. And I have some life updates for you guys that you might think is kind of cool. So I did mention a couple of months ago I was going out of the country to film a television show. So I was filming Canada's Got Talent. It is their biggest season yet. If you don't know this about me, I am a fire spinner, fire dancer of sorts. And I don't fully know yet if I'm going to make it to air, but I did audition and I am in their promotional video. So keep an eye out for that. It premieres March 19th, and I may or may not be in there somewhere, so keep your fingers crossed. I would really like some airtime. And then the other pretty cool announcement is, so I was just talking about Medify. It's one of my outlets for coaching. So it's a pretty large platform, and it's coaching for gamers across all sorts of different games. And they are doing an expose on me. So I think they heard through the grapevine about my professional life, my personal life, and the things that I do. And they wanted to do this whole story on me, which they are going to be featuring on their social media and on their website. So it's a video interview. So any of you who might be familiar with my voice, it might be an interesting perspective to see me for once. So I think they are interviewing a handful of their experts, and I'm very grateful to be one of them. So keep an eye out for that. I think that'll be sometime in March as well. But it was like an hour-long interview, and I think they're condensing it and making little shorts. I'm not too sure what they're doing, but I think it was pretty good. Pretty happy with it. So let's go ahead and talk about the talents that I ran for this key. This is pretty standard and straightforward for a fall. We do have flex points on the priest side, Mass Dispel, Disease Dispel being one of them. You don't want to waste a point in disease if it's not a disease dungeon. Food for thought. And it's not necessarily a Mass Dispel dungeon either, but there are a couple of points outside with the blooms where a Mass Dispel comes in real handy, especially on Fortified Week, because that ring around boss 2 can be pretty difficult. And then with my leftover points, I am voting for defense these days. And higher Tyrant keys, having a little extra defense is great. So, actually, this was over here, but that doesn't really make a big difference. So I talked about it with one of my students, but our two defensives, we have Desperate Prayer and Fade, if you have the talent. I have those as a macro because there's not a global on either. You can macro them together. And I just use one button for my defensives, and it's a pretty easy way to do it. They will sync up sometimes, they'll desync others. Sometimes I intentionally desync them to kind of find a rhythm. I still have separate binds for them, but I have one bind that's like my double defense. Then on Discipline, this is pretty standard. We are running Mindbender. I'm taking all these extra bolts of penance. I am playing for Wheel and Woe. It is a really great spell I'm finding, especially if you have elements of my UI that help you see where damage is. So for example, I have a weak R to show incoming damage from casted spells, and I have a weak R showing where bleeds are in group, and I have a weak R showing where dispels are in group. So essentially with Wheel and Woe, if I ever see one of those weak R's light up or trigger on my Grid 2, that is kind of where I place my Wheel and Woe. For the most part, I am just buffing my Smite, but it's nice to have access to a large single target heal. And the way I kind of think about it is a buffed Smite is a buffed AoE heal. Buff Shield is a buff single target heal. So it's like we have an option. We can either send a buff spell to the group, or we can send a buff spell to one person. It is a really good spell if you have a UI to show you where damage is. So Yep, there's that. And then quickly flashing the healing. Really not much to talk about here. This just goes to show that we have to be attacking our enemies if we're trying to fully utilize our spellbook. So it's all about our atonements and it's all about our attack spells. So we never really want those available. We want to be playing those non-stop, attacking enemies, managing our atonements at the same time. And here is a splash of our damage, and this is a little bit more interesting to talk about. Off the top, I was right at 70,000 damage per second, which is really good. We really want to aim high with our DPS because it also translates to our HPS. And then very importantly, noticing my Shadow Covenant hit 50% uptime, which is really what you want to aim for. This means that my Mindbender is kind of always active. So the name of the game is as one Mindbender's ending, we want to be sending the next one out as soon as possible. And the better you play each Mindbender, the more uptime you can have. So then looking at the damage, this is a pretty common spread with Mindbender on top. It just goes to show we really have to aim for all of these torments, 6 as a base, aiming for 7 and 8 with extra executes. And I'm using my KUI nameplates really to empower me to pick up these executes. It has a really simple built-in feature to shift a nameplate a different color when in execute range, and it makes it really easy to pick up these extra executes. More executes is more torments, more damage, more healing, and each extra torment, your Mindbender is out for 1 more second, meaning more melee, more mana return. So we really want to be aiming for 6 always, and then striving for 7 and 8. And my Dark Reprimand usually does more, but if I had to guess, it's because I wasn't getting great Harsh Discipline value here. It is kind of one of my least favorite talent changes they made. It's just not as good for Mythic Plus compared to Raid, because we're never really casting 2 Radiants in a row getting a full proc. I am trying to utilize a full proc sometimes where I'm just kind of literally dumping mana, but I think that's why my Dark Reprimand wasn't quite as high. But yep, thanks everyone for tuning in. Please keep an eye out for another lesson video next week. Also keep an eye out for my Metafy lesson. And if you learn anything from these videos, please also consider throwing the channel a tip. I have the super thanks feature open where you can just kind of submit a tip. The link is right below the video, and I would really appreciate that. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and clip over to the key. All right, here we go.
5.
So this
4,
key is a couple
3,
of weeks old. I have
2,
already previewed
1.
it fully once, and I kind of did a second skim. But I might be seeing this for the first time with you guys as well. But we do have a lot of good plays in here. Keep an eye out for the double Dark Stars, I'm calling them. And also we have some good fears, good mechanic plays. But pull 1 here is huge AoE pull. Star is an amazing spell for AoE. And we want 2 of those, both buffed by Shadow Covenant. So on the lead in here, I'm just letting things happen, getting a couple of dots out, a couple of atonements. Pan my camera to make sure I'm getting dots on these healthier mobs, which I have as dark red. And here's my first rotation. So for a double Dark Star, we cast Mindbender out, Star immediately. And then we will get a second Dark Star before the window ends, as long as we get at least 6 torments. And that was 7 torments, 2 Dark Stars. And I believe I get 1 more Dark Star here. So doing something like that on average will get you like half of a Dark Star more. And you'll see here's my second Mindbender. I get 1 more Dark Star. So in total, we get 3 Dark Stars. This is an 8 torment, so we get 3 Dark Stars and 15 torments. 7 and 8. But who's counting? Yeah, and here's a shade example. I know shades are this week too. That is a fixate weak aura that glows nameplates of mobs fixating you. I think it's the best way to track that. Other fixates too. And with this, Yeah, it's a concept I'm starting to want to talk about more, but pre-casting on top of damage is really important to do in a lot of scenarios. This is one of them. So before the group-wide damage goes out, 6 torments. As the boss is casting the attack, I also start casting my radiance, and I would call that a precast. And you kind of just have to develop a sense. Yeah. But then I didn't precast there, but it's always a good move to cast Mindbender while you're doing the side step. And that's what I did on the first 2, I think. Let's see how I do this one. Yep. So that was a precast Radiance that I believe was a split second too early. Hard to say, I'd have to replay it. Yeah, precasting is kind of a skill you have to develop. Okay, Mindbender's ready. Really need to get him out. We also have PI. There's our PI. Long atonements in group. And very intentionally here, I'm going to Radiance our Ret Paladin, who is in the middle of our cluster. And that was a much better precast with a Dark Star on the move. 7 torments, weaved in the Dispel. Focusing on CDR there. Yeah, you can get away with a lot of things on non-tyrannical, but if this were tyrannical, I'd be making sure I precast on each one of those group attacks. And then back to Dark Star, that one move where I played Star, one move I played Mindbender. It's really good to like distinctively know the difference in like where your casts are and your instant casts, and kind of plan them in a way. But that is one of my arguments for Star, is it's one more instant cast spell in our book compared to Halo, which is a cast. Also, I talked about the example of getting extra Dark Stars. Yeah, there is no big mob in this pull. It is just kind of a send on damage. Looks like I'm going for a double Dark Star. Let's see if I get both. 7 torments, 2 Dark Stars. Pretty good play. Okay, so for these guys, we need defensives. I'm quickly glancing at my spells. We have everything. I open with Rapture. That got a little bit dicey because Theorize got 2 mechanics. I'd have to play that back, but I think also one of these lesser little ghosts whacked him too. Not too sure. Let's see what happens here. I still have my personals. Okay, I'm picked. I pain sup and all my personals. So that was my Desperate Prayer Fade macro plus a personal pain sup. They can really hurt on Fortified. Sometimes it's worth not playing around if it's on you. Okay. That was a single Dispel on the Bloom. Used a potion. So Theorize died. I think that was just an honest mistake. But what I would also say is this pull was a little bit rushed. I really think we would have done better. Okay, there's a Mass Dispel for the double Bloom. I would have liked us to delay that chain by even 1 second. I think it would have made a difference. Okay, 7 torments. This is a tricky spot you don't really want to be in, but I ended one Mindbender with my next Mindbender far out. So I had like 20 plus seconds. Okay, I have no Mass Dispel this time. It does call for something else, Barrier, and Dispel myself. It's a hard decision, but I usually leave the Bloom on the tank and Dispel the other person. Mindbender's out. Quick Dispel. And with these Blooms, if you're quick enough on the Dispel, you can avoid any damage, and that's what I did there. It's something to pay attention to, but every attack every dot. Everything has a tempo. And with the blooms, the first tick of damage doesn't go out for like half a second. So if you're quick enough, you can avoid all damage. And you might have noticed in this area the red bar that's popping up with a trumpet sound for Innervate. That is a fear opportunity for us, and I think I have a really good play here. Yeah, so I was selected. It's no better time to play your fear than if you're selected with something. And the Innervate popped up. I had the previous mechanic. I was out of personals. So it was a very defensive fear. And yeah, this is another just minor pull, want to pump damage. Don't have my Mindbender yet. Go into a Rapture for these dots. And this is a slightly unconventional Rapture where I'm just shielding myself. Counter to the tempo, as we were talking, of the dot damage. So you can kind of like desync the incoming damage of the dot with your global. And you can just like spam shield and it catches every tick of the dot. And that was a defensive Dark Reprimand into myself. Maybe could have gotten away without doing that. But sometimes a defensive penance proc is called for. Okay, we have this boss, non-tyrannical. PI will come up midway. And on pull, we have just enough time for one round of Mindbender. So we have to send him immediately and highly prioritize CDR. The idea here is for every Chrono Faded, we want our Mindbender out. And we want to be in the non-lit quadrant as much as we can, to be honest. Okay, Mindbender is just about back. I ramp with long atonements in group. Mindbender's cast. I'm selected. Desperate Prayer and Fade. I think it's always a good idea to prio yourself. Okay, and that wasn't my best play, but it was fine because I had defensives rolling, but I was caught in the light. Here's PI 2. Okay, Mindbender's still not back yet. Here comes the next Chrono Faded. I'm selected again. No personals, have to paints up yourself. Mindbender is out. And it's always a good play to Radiance after the second one. And it looks like my Radiance only hit 4 or 5. So I single atoned the 5th before I dropped the Penance, is what it looked like. Okay, so Mindbender's not quite back. I'm going for a Rapture to soften. Wasn't too good. Here's our Mindbender. At least I was in the correct quadrant. We are almost to execute, so we are good. Yeah, on a boss, as soon as you execute, you are set. It's kind of just a race to sub 20. 7 Torments, pretty good. Mindbender is not quite ready. I think I hold. I send one. Here goes the Mindbender. Yeah, I sent. And then, I think I've talked about this before, but that is one of my favorite recars that I've made for the boss. It puts a dotted line around those that are selected with Chrono Faded, and it switches to solid when it's when they're in the correct quadrant. So I should have said that before the boss, but I think I've said it in the past. So I mean, I think you know, you could tell what was going on. Okay, playing this little game. 4, 3, 2, 1. This fucking lighter worked.
You shall not interfere with our
That was a pretty good ring for a 25 fall. We only had 1 death, and it was from just a mistake. It wasn't like we weren't outplayed. I think this is my favorite dungeon, though. Also, to be honest.
Track the influence to a place
I think I like the vibe of like the sand and like these Stargates. I'm just like sold.
You're not coming with us?
Stargate was like one of my favorite shows. Fun fact.
In a sense,
Stargate SG-1,
you know me now.
Atlantis, Universe, all of it. Not the movies though. Well, I think they're okay.
Corpse above us. It's
So these are fun just to pump. I am aiming for a double star, at least an early star. You want to attack the dark red, that is the big one. Yep, early dark star for the damage grab, because these guys will die. And as we do all these Dragon Pulls here, keep an eye on my current HPS. It gets pretty high in some areas. So per dragon, you kind of want 2 Mindbenders, and you'll see here he has 30% left. Just got the Mindbender back, and we're losing health in group still. So we gotta send this guy. I Radiance before my double death. And talking about the tempo of damage from earlier, do some quick CDR here. Yeah. So I try, like you don't want to, if the group health is full, you don't want to reach for death in a situation like that. You want a tick of the incoming damage before you death. And you kind of want to stagger the tempo of your global with the incoming damage. Think that makes sense? I did an early star. Always good to Radiance in these areas. You don't want to waste time with single atonements. You want to group wide. And I've talked about it in other videos, but we want party nameplates on, because that is going to be your best way to maximize Radiance and hit all 5 allies. You have to pick, picking up the extra executes there. You have to select the ally most central in your cluster. You can only do that with party nameplates, really. Okay, that was 8 torments, really good. But notice the timer on my Mindbender, he is not quite ready. Good route. Mindbender's still not ready. Still not ready. Okay, there he is. So I sent him immediately. Grabbed an extra death. Smite, smite, smite. Death. Finish. So I cast a flash heal exiting my Mindbender, and that was mainly just to re-proc my 10% DR talent and for the atonement. Working a Radiance as atonements are beginning to dwindle. There's a lot of HPS too. So, I am a Night Elf now, or whatever type elf it is with Shadow Meld. A really good play here. Yeah, and notice in party when an ally is selected with the single target attack, the targeted cast weak aura fires with a white dotted line. That is a fantastic place to shield. There was another one. I think it's just the best you can do as a healer to prevent damage spikes. So it's really, yeah, really good to play your shields there. Okay, he outplayed that one. And the only thing I'm tracking with bigwigs here is the necrotic winds. We have to have our Mindbender out. First round here I go for minor defensive with Vampiric Embrace. And I'm telling my allies to use defensives. And the name of the game here is in between necrotic winds, farm your Mindbender back, which is possible. Oh, I'm selected. Okay, meld. So that was a really good example of meld. Mindbender is back. Full, long atonements are in group. Plus a Radiance for the proc. Here goes our Mindbender. Mind Blast. penance, death, work in a radiance. What do we got here? So we have 2 dragons. It is a really pro tip. Your fear can break the ice attack. That is something I learned from Automatic Jack. Thank you for that. And I was selected. No Shadow Meld that time. Oh, and I got hit. So that was a bad moment for me. So we just got our Mindbender back. Okay, there was the fear to break the ice. Mindbender is out. So in that case, with the Mindbender out, I only wanted to use the time of 1 global. So instead of casting Radiance in the group, I just threw Theorize, an instant flash heal since he was selected. It's a play to favor CDR. I want to keep smiting. I don't want to waste a cast time. That was pretty good. So quick note when it comes to rotation. So we have all these torments we want to get. 6 is our base. We want to strive for 7 and 8. It's so important to smite while you're in Shadow Covenant, and that's for the double CDR. I try and make it to my 2nd penance before I do any sort of reatonement. So I ramp long atonements first to allow me just to attack. I'm planning for atonements to start dwindling midway through my Mindbender, and I try and delay that reatonement until after my 2nd penance. And I think that's when I have the best plays. Yeah, so I really just try at the front half of my Mindbender, I try and prio smites and just get to my 2nd penance, get my 2nd penance on cooldown, and then I'll reatone with like a Radiance or maybe a single atonement, instant cast atonement. Mindbender's back. Double execute on the front. Ooh, ouch. Okay, so that was a tricky play because I got jumped. I ran forward, but I ran into a shade. So I think I was double mechanicked there. I think maybe running backwards could have saved me away from the shade. But I think I was also hit with something. Running backwards would have put me away from the group. It's just a tough situation, but quick run back. Here to pick up the recovery. Doing good here. Opening with dots, then atonements. And since I missed PI on the Demon Hunter, Mage gets it this time. Timed right with his combustion. Noticing with my OmniCD, I'm only tracking 1 spell here. It is so important that we maximize our PI with proper timings. So important that you can reserve an entire add-on like OmniCD to help you with that. It was something I talked about with my student this week, but he had on like 5+ spells per person. It's just not something that I believe helps you, and that's a hill I'll die on. So this is a nice little trick. You can Mind Soothe and Fade and sneak past. There are a lot of places where you just need Fade. And then I think this is my favorite UI element of this season, and it's a little crazy, but I play Grid2 and Voodoo, and it's because Voodoo has a feature to have NPC frames, and I can really easily heal Chromie and track my atonements on Chromie just like I do with my allies, and you'll see that here. This is another great place for Shadow Meld. It also frees up your personal defensives for the other attacks, which are very deadly. So I think I have a slight misplay here, but we do not have enough time for a Mindbender, but we do have enough time for a Mind Blast. So if nothing else, you can fire Mind Blast for the damage grab. And that was a really good Shadow Meld. And I have my defensives free, Wall, and Fade. Mindbender's out with VE and with a proc from Harsh Discipline. And we're good to go. And notice next to my player frame, we have a Chromie that changes blue just like my allies does. And this is a great place just to pump our Mindbender. I try to keep a Renew on Chromie. And here's our Mindbender. I also try and Radiance off Chromie. Except in that case, the Mage needed it. Oh, my Atonement fell off Chromie. There it is. But it makes it really easy. It's the easiest way I know how. But it is a little wild to use 2 bar add-ons. But it works. And we have plenty of time here to send a Mindbender. Yeah, there he goes. I'm selected. I give myself a shield for defense. And I'm still attacking the boss. My dot will spread to the ads, and I think that's enough. And also his hitbox is so big, the Mindbender might actually still hit the ads. I'm not sure. We're at 95%. We're aiming for 90. And my Mindbender is back. Oh, wow. I sent him. That was really ballsy. I didn't realize that happened, but let's see what happens here. I think I might barrier. I would call that a misplay too. Yeah, I barrier because of that. Okay, barrier and rapture because I didn't have any green heals. Kind of a misplay, but not a bad recovery. Barrier plus rapture. Using my grid 2 to get those shields out, tracking that dark blue value. 93% on boss. Chromie's atoned. Group is atoned. Here goes Mindbender. Mindbender plus VE. Smiting and smiting and smiting. Radiance off of Chromie. I think it goes without saying, always read dot before a Mindbender. I noticed, at least in my lesson this week, my student was not dotting first. But yeah, you always want dots up. And we do have PI just refreshed, but we are holding it for the final phase so we can get tons of haste and do something really cool as a Dîsc Priest. And spread my dots to the ads. And that was kind of sad. I don't know if anyone noticed that. But I think my Mindbender was dead, but then I penanced the boss, hoping to spread my dots to the ads, and he didn't have a dot. So that was cringe. Okay, here goes final phase. And keep an eye out. This is pretty cool. This is one of the 2 places where we can get a double Mindbender. We just have to like really spam our spells. I just got Mind Blast back, but I'm waiting for the Bender. There's the Blast. Double Mindbender. Double Rainbow for the win. So yeah, that was a really good key overall. Quickly looking at the meters, I'm on the bottom of the avoidable damage, which is always where you want to be as a healer. And for damage overall, I was right at 70,000, which is really good considering we don't have an AUG. And I think we had a lot of really good examples in here of how to min-max our minor spells, min-maxing our fear, min-maxing our PI, min-maxing our defensives. The more you can min-max, the more success you're going to have in higher level keys. Just always keep that in mind. So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Please keep an eye out for my Metafy interview. If you're interested in a private lesson, please check out my website as well. I think that is a really good way to learn in a one-on-one setting. And please also stay tuned to see what happens upcoming on Canada's Got Talent. Please everyone, keep your fingers crossed for me. Keep an eye out for some new videos coming up next week. And until next time, Dîsc out.